Good afternoon, everyone. It is the City of Shelbyville Mayor and City Council special study session for charter review. It's Tuesday, August the 20th. It's about noon and a little after. And we want to call this meeting to order at this time and want to ask, our first thing is citizen comments. Do we have any citizen comments, Lisa?
No, I don't have anybody signed up here.
Okay. All right, our new business for today is to review and the discussion of the Shelbyville City Charter. We have Mr. Patrick Marsh with us today from MTAS. We appreciate him being here. And we're going to turn the meeting over to Patrick at this time.
All right, great. Would you like me to stand up there and speak? Or?
Can he move that microphone down to where he's sitting? You can he, Kay? Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Just press your button to turn it on there. You'll see a number come up in your little screen. Patrick. There you go.
All right. Great. Well, thanks for having me today. And the first thing I'd like to share with you is that I'm just here for technical advice, technical assistance. You know, this is your document. This is your city charter. We can do with it as you guys see fit within the law. And I'm here to advise you with any questions or concerns you have with that document. As you know, there's nothing wrong with the document in its current state, but it's up to this body if you wish to amend such document. And I'll be here for technical advice, and what I can't answer, I'll take back to our legal team and MTAS to assist you in any way we can. So that's what I wanted to kick off, and I'm happy to hear from you as to what some of your concerns are. Well, let me just give you a little bit of history on myself since I'm new to Tennessee. I just started in Middle Tennessee, the south part of Middle Tennessee, as a management consultant in June of this year. I come to the state of Tennessee, 20 years of local government management experience. So I sat in Mr. Collins' seat for over 20 years. I've also served local government at a regional plan commission another 11 years. So nearly 35 years in the public sector. I've seen about everything, as you can imagine. I was up in Wisconsin for 15 of my years, a little time in Illinois and a little time in Nevada. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Yes, Scott, before you get start.
Just any questions or concerns the council may have in some of the language of the charter, please just bring it up and have the discussion on it.
I have something I'd like to bring up and discuss, and I don't know if it needs to be a charter change or resolution, or even if the rest of the council so feels it's important. But I know for a fact that if you are a member of, if you work for the city in any way past it, you're not eligible to be a city councilman. I feel that it should be the exact same position if you work for the county and are paid by the county. You know, and a prime example of that is this lawsuit that we're in with the city over school tax money. Now, if you were an employee of the county, would you not have a conflict and have a hard time representing your city constituents? And that's, I mean, and I think that would be in others, not just that area, but a lot of areas. So if our forefathers were conscious enough to say that the city would be a conflict if you work for the city, I think we should look at the fact and discuss whether the county, working for the county would be, should be ineligible to be a city councilman also. And I'm not up for re-election this time, so it's not bothering me one way or the other. But but it is something I think should be discussed, and I personally think it is a conflict, especially like in this tax thing right now.
I think when we went over the charter the last time, I thought we actually put that in there about being a city employee or what do you call it, a spouse, a direct immediate family.
Right.
Right.
I thought that was in there, but when it came back, it wasn't in there.
I think,
For county employees.
but not the county, I'm talking about a county.
Then I got C.
I know the city, I think, still in there, that you can't be a city
You can't
employee,
be a city employee,
be on the city
which
council,
is
but I think
obvious for the,
you're gonna have conflict if you're a county employee in so many things that we address with each other, that I think that is a conflict also. What do you think, Mr. Moore?
Yeah, it definitely has the potential to be a conflict from time to time. And if, when I've seen similar situations in the past, when those conflicts arose, maybe there was something in conflict between what the county was doing and what the city was doing. Those individuals would obviously need to recuse themselves. Well, it'd be up to them to recuse themselves from that discussion. They don't obviously have to. That's a decision they need to make on their own, given ethical, you know, their ethics and the way that, they should be operating. So, but I've seen a lot of, through my years, I've seen a lot of local officials serve on school boards and city council. I've seen a lot of county commissioners also serve on city councils. And I've actually managed people that have worked for both organizations in the past. So it's a little bit tricky when it comes to that, but it's something that you will all need to deliberate if you want to move forward with.
yeah, let me point out that the charter doesn't allow for another elected position. So your constitutional offices at the county commissioners, and your constitutional offices, Rhonda, Johnny, Mark, all those folks can't serve on council. But it would allow anybody in the school system, anybody that works for a constitutional
The public
office.
works people or anything like that could work.
Right, I mean, if they work in the department like Mark's employees, of course, Mark is their boss. Mark can't run
Because he's
now,
elected.
because he's now elected. He can't run. Anybody that's elected can't run. You can't be, you couldn't be somewhere, a state representative and also live here and be a city council member. So what you're dealing with, those people are already at just any elected office. So, and from the city perspective, of course, the primary reason you don't have a city employee is because the conflict it creates in chain of authority. You've got somebody sitting on council that's the boss of the boss of their boss. It would create a lot of problems.
Yes.
So you don't have that with a county employee. You would only have the situation would arise when you have something that's truly, the city and the county disagree on something. And like you said, it would obviously, depending on what it is, that person may or may not recuse themselves, but they would probably be obligated to at least make that statement about, I've got this potential conflict. Here's what I am. Here's what I do.
Well said.
Well, and another example, and it's not, it doesn't affect me, but if you were a school teacher with our lawsuit going on right now, and you're paid directly by the county, are you gonna, and if you were a city councilman, would you be voting to cut your own salaries? Would that not be a conflict of interest?
They probably would have to make that statement here.
Well, I guess
That'd be
I'm
an interesting
on
question.
the bill. How do you serve two masters at one time?
I'm sorry, sir.
I said, how can you serve two masters at one time?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's,
So is this something that we need to amend with this charter or insert in this charter?
If you wanted to prevent county employees this is where you would do that in the charter. You'd have to change the charter just to do that.
Amended, just add that to it, and that's.
It would be amending your charter.
Okay.
I mean, it goes through this whole process. I mean, whatever you want to change in your charter, you all will have to work it out. There's got to be a resolution that has to be drawn up. That resolution then goes to the General Assembly.
Mhm.
There, people have got to work it and massage it. And they, of course, have to approve it. And then it comes back to you and you have to approve it again if they approve it. So it's a several step process.
On page C10, on the charter, it has the information under 3-4, the eligibility requirements, and then under 3-6, ineligibility for office. So I would assume city attorney and tax consultant, that would be where the language needs to be addressed.
Well, didn't y'all have, and I've said that before about that, but me and Tommy, 5 o'clock in the morning, we can talk kind of, he said, y'all, the council had a close call back when Mark was on the council.
That was a
He
question
got
about,
appointed, I can't even remember, he got appointed
Right.
to be the road dog, take
Right.
over the road, and it was something, that's what I was looking at, written, Tommy said it's like one word in there that you could delete, and it would take care of that. I don't know.
well, elected, if somebody is elected to one of those positions, they're done. But you're gonna have to add more language to talk about employees of
Okay.
Bedford County, and I think we need to be, I mean, just saying, somebody could be an employee of Rutherford County, but live here in Shelbyville and work. I'm just throwing that out there.
Right.
You're mainly talking about Bedford County, but you could have issues. There've been lawsuits with other people around us, not just Bedford County. So, just pointing that out. But people could be employees of Tullahoma,
Yeah.
but live here.
I'm like William, right next, we're in a spot where the county's not happy with us, obviously. We have ex-city employees that think that it's a train wreck, but I'll run for city council. And they're eligible too. I mean, they live in the city, but they now are employed in their own county boards and everything else, but you know, like you said, they could recuse themselves if they chose to, if they're not choosing not to. So,
And if I could add also,
Yeah.
sorry about that, but, that there's several, different type of scenarios where someone on this elected body could have a conflict. They may be a developer, that lives in the community and they want to run for office here and they, development may come to this council for consideration or plan commission. In those situations, there would obviously need to be a recusal or should be. So that's really not much different. I'm not sure what, the state will think of limiting the opportunity for elected officials
Yeah.
or for limiting the opportunity to serve. That would be up to them.
Yeah, it's looked on kind of negatively
Yeah.
to limit people's right to be a representative. So I don't know. And I'm fairly certain if we go forward with this, I mean, MTS has to give, Melissa Ashburn has to give a legal opinion on whether she thinks it's constitutional or not.
That's exactly right. And as I stated, anything that comes up in this meeting, I will definitely take back to the MTS legal team.
Okay. Any other comments, on that? Does someone else have something that we need to address?
So does council want us to draft something like that?
Yeah.
Gary?
Yeah.
Henry's yes? Yes over here too. So that's section 302?
what did it, that's what I was looking for, yeah.
3 days.
3-4.
3-6.
Well, it probably should go
It's a-
under 3-4B is probably where it should go.
Lisa, say that again.
3-4B is where it should go, because that's where it says that an employee of the city of Shelbyville can't be eligible.
But also
It's just-
3-2B for the mayor's seat.
Okay, so we need to look at
Mayor.
3-2.
Mayor or city council.
B, we need to do 3-4. And where, there was a 3 dash,
The other one is just the other ineligible for office clause. And it just talks about sailors, soldiers, people convicted of felons. I really think it probably belongs in those other two sections. But I wanted to clarify, at one point, Councilmember Christie, you said no employee of the county, and you mentioned spouses and stuff too.
Well, actually Henry did, but I don't know, that depends, what does everybody else think?
It doesn't say that
I
about
think
city of
spouses gets a little
Shelbyville.
far
I
fetched.
do
I
not
think
think the
employee
state of
would be,
Tennessee will look happy
yeah, I
about
think
that at all.
employee would be
Just
enough,
employees, okay.
personally.
I just wanted.
They
to
still may have a conflict of interest though, just saying, they still may have a conflict
Yeah,
of
they
interest
do.
because of that, depending on the circumstances.
Right.
But as a matter of course, the county doesn't have a conflict of interest with the city.
Sure.
As a matter of course, like but when you're dealing with a city employee, it's obvious, it's built in. It's just the structure of how we work. But you are in a particular situation right now where there is obviously some, you know, a very big issue, and so it could happen again in the future.
You know, like at the end of the year, when Gary gets the next day, you fill out your papers, so what's the paper here? You know. You're talking about January. Yeah.
That statement of.
Yeah, it says on there, I remember that, do you receive any kind of compensation, blah, 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 yes or no? And it could be, bonds or interest or stocks or anything else, you would have to put. You'd have to say, this, I'm a county employee, I receive compensation, county of Bedford County. So, yeah, I'm good with that.
Will y'all draft that for us?
I will. I have the notes written right here.
Okay, just making sure.
That'll definitely come from our legal team.
Yeah. What was the other one we sent you?
The other one was in regards to, now I'm not picking it up here. I can't think of it right now.
Patrick,
Yes,
it was for the city council to have more say, I'm just paraphrasing, more say in with the personnel of the city.
that's correct. I believe in hiring, of staff,
Yeah, the department heads.
department heads, yes.
So what page is personnel?
I don't know that, so.
Officers and employees, personnel.
Let me ask you this, your current, government is a council manager form of government, correct?
Well, as a private act charter, it's basically similar to that.
Okay,
It's all personnel decisions besides what we call officers, which would be city recorder, city attorney,
and manager.
manager, treasurer, and then our judge. There's 5 positions that the council hires directly. Everyone else would be hired by the city manager.
Right.
Yeah, so that personnel follows that right there, which of course keeps that out of public meetings. All the records are open, but that keeps that in that situation.
Yes.
So is that gonna be drafted?
This is, we were trying to find where it was at in the charter. On C-15, under Article 6, officers and employees, there is one, 6.2 talks about the council appointing the treasurer, judge, recorder, and attorney. So I guess you could add the department heads in there if you wanted. And then under city manager, under section 7.2, item 7, it talks about the manager having authority over, and it has department heads listed in that paragraph. So
Could you
there'd be-
give me those paragraphs and subsections?
Yeah, the first one is they're both, one is under Article 6, Officers and Employees, and it's section 6-2.
Okay,
And then the next one would be Article 7, City Manager, and that would be 7-2, paragraph 7.
And that's where it says the, authority to employ mode has been met.
I'm sorry, 7-3, 7-3, paragraph 7, yeah.
okay.
So how would that be written?
Whatever y'all want, what is
However
it?
y'all want it written.
So basically, what I'm hearing is there is a recommendation from this body to amend Article 7-3-7 to state that the council shall have authority to hire department heads.
Council hasn't fully talked about that at all, so I think it's premature to say it's a recommendation. There are council members that have brought forward that they would like to be more involved. So I think this is the opportunity now for them
To
to
review that.
discuss that and figure out in what format they want that to be in. Do they really want it to be, do they want to just to be more involved and allowed to be involved in the hiring process? Or do they actually want to hire the directors?
Yeah, I think
No.
that probably
No.
is something
No.
that we need, that this body, not me, needs to discuss.
Well,
Right, they need to discuss.
well, my thing is to be more involved. That's straight across the board for me, so. Just more involved.
I don't wanna hire nobody.
I'd like to see the, maybe resumes or,
Yeah,
you know,
there you go.
those kind of things.
There you go.
and, You know, input from the entire.
We may know,
That's it.
you may know something, I may, or Henry may,
Yeah.
that is not on the
So-
resume.
So we can, you know, everybody can take your temperature and that's.
Yeah, yeah, just know, maybe, if we hire some, if we're gonna hire somebody, of course, Scott can do it, I ain't got a problem, he does a good job, but I'd like to know, like, give us a list, John Brown, Ronnie Turnbull, Gary Hales, and Clyde. And that's it, you know, 'cause I might say, well, old Bobby Turnbull, he's the biggest crook in the world, been. Some people probably feel that way, but anyway.
No.
You know, that, I may know he was in prison in Timbuktu and nobody else knows,
Right.
he didn't put it on his resume.
Well,
I don't want to hire him.
I need to point out 7.5 because that I think is actually the paragraph we gotta deal with.
That's what I-
On page 118, it talks about council not to interfere with personnel appointments exclusive to the city manager or their subordinates. Neither the council nor any of its members shall in any manner dictate the appointment or removal of any city administrative officers or employees whom the city manager or any city manager subordinates are empowered to appoint. However, the council may express its views and fully and freely discuss with the city manager anything pertaining to the appointment and removal of such officers and employees. Now, that's a lot of language that
I-
it's kind of hard to, that one's hard to
That
negotiate.
may cover it, you know?
It kind of in some ways does. I think it depends on, I think maybe how we go, we haven't maybe worked out the mechanism for that. I have always interpreted that is that council clearly cannot go up to the city manager, they can't vote in a public meeting, they can't direct him to remove someone ever from a position.
Yeah.
That's what that top line is talking about.
But then it's.
However, then at the bottom, I've always interpreted it, and when I've had council members come to me over the years, not just this council, other council members, what am I allowed to do? Because I have concerns about a department. And I'm like, you have absolutely every right to walk in to that city manager's office and sit down and have that conversation. I also think you probably do have a right to discuss, concerns in a public meeting if you want to do that. Now, I'm going to tell you, you can't ever vote. You can't look at them and direct, because that would be that's beyond your authority according to 7.5. But you certainly have the right to express your opinion about how any department's being run. I think that's broad enough and that's how I have guided council before on that.
I would totally agree with that.
Well, this
Okay.
has been working.
Hmm.
I mean, it's why would it sit there, it says one thing and then it turns around and says something totally different. And I've been told, well, you can't direct the city manager to do or remove.
You can't. I think you can fully and freely discuss your opinion with the city manager, and that doesn't necessarily mean if it's only one particular council member, that doesn't mean that he should immediately change his course or her course or whatever's going on. I feel like the mechanism generally has been that you need to trust the city manager and that he may or she may know more things than you know over time. So if you have a concern, you go and express that. And as I've shared with other council members before, if you feel like there is a pattern in that the city manager is not addressing personnel matters to get where it needs to go, where you think it needs to go, then you know the option is, to speak blunt, is the city manager. But there's going to be times when you don't necessarily agree with the city manager and what they've done with the department. And it may be, as I have come to see, there's a lot of times that even I have been concerned about departments and how things are going. But I also know in the grand scheme, I'm not the hirer, and I don't know what it takes to fire someone and then go hire somebody else. Some of these positions, it's very difficult to do. And so I have seen that even become worse over the years, where they're like, who am I going to get?
Yeah.
To be honest, who am I going to get? And so I would want my council members to be fully aware of that situation. But of course, I have to trust that my city manager and my council are going to have that discussion, which is why I feel like this section gives them the broad power to have that discussion. Now, I think what Councilman Ewing wants is probably something built into the charter that gives a procedure. Is that what you want? That you get to see things before a hiring decision is made?
Yes.
Okay. So you specifically said you wanted the resumes to be given to you before the hiring decision?
I like for the council to see the, resumes and,
Mhm.
that type of thing and allow us to input.
Okay, and what form of input do you want?
Even the response email or whatever, just, hey, Scott, this is what I think, or, I'm fine with that. That's simple.
Just that you have the right, that we will send out emails. The city of Shelbyville would send out an email with all resumes before the hiring decision is made.
I'm good with it, but I'm just one of the council.
And then you would maybe give feedback based on your,
email there.
just by email? You're not asking for a meeting or anything in public? Okay.
Why can't that thing be just a general practice that this council can do under the existing charter? That's just the relationship you have with the city manager, because I've done that.
Oh, yeah.
You've got somebody that you have concerns about, and you say, well, I'd like to talk to you about it. You may not know him.
Right.
And that kind of thing. We've all done that, I think, at some time.
I
But
agree.
I certainly don't want the ability to hire somebody or fire somebody. And I agree with everybody else on
I
that.
think your charter is broad enough for exactly what she's talking about now. The charter would allow that. I think what we may not have it, I don't know if we need to put it actually in our code. We could change the municipal code or to adopt that as in our personnel policy is a matter
That's
of,
what I was gonna say. It
as
would
a
be
matter
more
of
of a
practice.
be more of a policy than it would be, an ad or a statement in your charter.
Okay. I agree, because I think the charter is very broad enough for that right now.
Yeah.
To allow that.
Yeah.
Well, it's fine. But this other part, I talked to the city manager about a department head.
Mhm.
How free am I to do that, number one? And number two, does it take multiple council to do this?
To do, what is the end goal? If you're trying to change something?
Well, if we have a problem, an issue,
Mhm.
and we need to talk with the city manager.
Mhm.
Does it take a vote? Does it take multiple council to go into Scott's office and say the same, pretty much the same thing, or how does that go?
What I'm hearing you saying is if you actually wanted a change. I mean, what this broadly is saying, you can go and express your concerns. You certainly, as an individual council member, can't force a change. And you as a group can't force a change. You simply can't under this. You're hoping that your discussions and conversations with your city manager would lead to a change according to, if you all are in agreement. That's the way it's set up.
Do we have a policy or do you have a guideline, Scott, that if you get so many complaints from the public or from the city council that you would have to make a move on any department head or any employee?
Well, there are several factors that would go into a decision like that. Number one, we work together day in and day out. And so that's the biggest thing. And secondly, a request has been made on occasion questioning, the judgment why Jim Bob Cooter was hired or Bobby Turnbow was hired. And when a request was made for resumes, there was a question on whether or not they had to do a request for public information. And we decided that you all as council
Right.
are entitled to see
Sure.
anything and everything.
Sure.
So
Right.
we
Yeah.
definitely did not
Yeah.
ask one of our bosses to do a form.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what the end game here is, how we need to coordinate this, because of course I take each and every one of y'all's advice to heart. But that's not to say I may not respectfully disagree, because I'm on the inside working daily, whereas you all may hear chatter from a few people out in the community. And if the issue has validity, it's certainly addressed with the department head, or the department head directs it with their subordinates. I mean, we don't take any complaint lightly. We always address it and get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's an answer, but
Well, I gotta throw this out because
Please.
there was just a case where a promotion was made. And I understand there was a couple of complaints that came straight to you. And that did not trigger any other decision. I don't know if there were, multiple, applications on this, or none at all. I don't know, because there again, we weren't involved in this position in getting it filled. But, so, and this is a perfect example of what just happened.
okay.
So that's why I'm
I'm
wanting a little more involvement.
I guess I'm trying to find out exactly, when you talk about involvement and talk about input, the way the charter is written, we all have to understand that the ultimate authority lies with the city manager. And if he disagrees with even 4 of you, it's still his power. So there's not a vote of you all going into his office and 4 of you complaining. Now, if 4 of you are complaining, and there's some very legitimate issues at stake, and you do not get a satisfactory response from your city manager, I could definitely understand, or to you, a satisfactory response, why you're not, I'd be watching that. But there may be still things that you don't necessarily know. And it was built specifically to keep the politics out of hiring these positions, because otherwise you could have people every 2 years being rotated out. That's simply the way it is. And in some cities, it can get that way. If you actually have the power. Now, you all said you don't want to have the power to hire and fire. So I'm trying to get specifically what you think we could change, Marilyn, that would give you more involvement that you'd be satisfied with.
I told you, I've looked to lay eyes on resumes, applications.
Right. But then
For the department heads.
But then you asked about what does it take for us to go into his office? Do we all have to vote? It sounds like I want to be able to go into the office and I want to see a response according to what I have said. Is that accurate? That you want to see action according to what you've brought in?
Yes.
Okay. I think what you have to understand, though, is you may not get the response that you want. The way it is structured is you may not get If you're asking for someone not to be hired or someone not to be fired or whatever, that may not happen based on the way it's currently set up.
Well, isn't that why we're here today? Because if something's currently set up, aren't we here today to amend or change if that's the will of
We
this
are.
body?
We are, but when I hear what you're saying is that I want to be able to, when we've gone in and we've had a vote, do I need a vote to go in and talk to him? No, but if you want to be able to tell the city manager and want a response that says, I don't want that person, or I do want this person, you need the power to hire and fire if you're gonna be that involved. That's what I'm just trying to make certain I understand what it is that you want. You don't think that would be necessary?
I don't think we need to go that far,
Okay. Okay.
but I don't think that I think that our voices should carry a little more if necessary. If we march into the city manager's office and there is a real concern,
Mhm.
it should not be to where, it's taken as a threat or, our advisors are called or anything of that nature. This is us. This is our thing here, and we're trusting the city manager, to direct these people and keep them on the straight line. But when we have a problem, any council, to this council, the next council, I think that it should carry more than what it has been when we have a problem with a department.
I think that's gonna be on this is gonna be on a person-to-person basis.
Yeah, I
It's
would
gonna
agree.
be your relationship with your city manager.
I would agree. It's a case by case basis now. If, and nothing, I'm not gonna pick on the city manager. I've sat in that seat a lot and I know what they go through, but, if there is an issue with this body concerned about the hiring practices or the promotion or the discipline of employees, that's a manager issue that this body needs to evaluate. It's not a one-off situation on who they're hiring. It's their hiring practices in general and their discipline practices in general that this body would have concerns with. Because the way it is written and the way that the organization, the community has worked over the years is that the council appoints those positions that, you appoint, and the city manager hires and manages to the level of discipline and, termination of employees that are under their control.
And they may be looking, I don't know if the folks in Maryland or others may be looking at, there should be some kind of a ground if you have a problem with the department head or hear it from we're all wanting to take care of the citizens of Shelbyville. So if we have a problem with, we're getting complaints from folks on certain people and things like that, it should not be that, you get rid of the city manager because he doesn't do what you want to do. There should be some middle ground right there where you can say, well, let's just have a conference about it and let's work this out. And this is the way we feel, those kind of things like that. I think that's the problem that I'm seeing coming from the corporate background that I have, that you don't have any kind of when you have a problem like that right there, it's like nobody's listening.
Yeah, there's other things that come into play too. If this body has concerns with a hire or a promotion or a discipline, you gotta be careful not to go in there with 4 council members into the city.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to do that, no.
You can't have a walking forum. But you are definitely given the opportunity as individuals to go and talk to the city manager about any situation.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's only an opinionated type of conversation.
That's all that would be, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It'd be your opinion of the situation.
No recommendation.
You could make a recommendation, but the city manager would not necessarily have to agree with you on it.
Because I know we hear things all the time about different personnel. It's been my practice for a long time, forever, basically, stay out of employee business. Because I have seen it in the past where certain council members seem to be heavily involved in employee issues. Because what the practice has been, they themselves have allowed employees to come to them and gripe. And there's always gonna be an employee, as many 150 or 200 employees we have, that's not gonna be satisfied. And if they think they've got a council member
Right.
who has supposedly this power, and they're running to the city manager on the employee's behalf all the time, guess what? The next employee will do the same thing, and they wear you out as a council member.
Yes.
So basically, I tell them all the time, I don't know,
I've seen that
I
happen.
have not attended all the employee meetings. There's been receptions and stuff, and I purposefully avoid those so that I don't build that personal relationship with the employees, because it's just stepping outside our role as council members. I've recommended some people to be hired, or, we have some concerns.
You can
We
always
have
do that.
people that tell us, but,
Well,
hey, he's got the details, and with personnel laws and employee laws nowadays,
it's a decision.
we can't be too involved, or Wilton City will wind up in lawsuit big time.
Well, and it should, that's also a management decision, a management issue. If the employees are going directly to elected officials, they should be following the chain of command.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
And-
that's right.
And I may just point that out, that we have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because I've had that situation a couple of times come up. And of course, I've had to remind the city manager. And someone has asked about whether they could discipline someone for that. Well, there is a state law that talks about people's access to their representation. We actually got in a lawsuit one time about that.
Oh,
And we wound up settling it. It's been years and years ago. So we can't tell our employees not to speak to council members. But council members have to be aware of that. If you get involved in it, you basically undermine, that person feels like, I don't have to listen to my boss anymore.
That's right.
His or her boss will take care of this. It
Yeah,
becomes an issue.
I can see where that'd be a problem. My thoughts are that I just get it from the public.
Yeah.
That this person came out and did this or did that and the other. And I don't tell anybody else. I send it to Scott.
Right.
And let Scott deal with it because he's over the employees and things like that. And I think that's the way it should be. I
That's
think
why
that's
I
the way
was
it
gonna
should be.
expand on that too, because over the years, it's real easy to run the buck. There's something wrong with
Oh, yeah.
a street or something, or garbage, and he's accessible, he's easy to get to, but you've got to include the city manager. in that.
He's got to be the number one. That's right.
I like doing it by email so that it's basically documented that I
Yeah.
made this request, so that if he wants to get feedback or I request it, he can forward it on to Buck.
Yeah.
But trying to mess with him on a daily basis, if you're doing that, it'll drive you crazy trying to.
And I like that where I can just pass it right on to him.
It's very easy.
It is, that's exactly
He
right.
can handle it.
And he responds.
But council will often get heat. I mean, you all sit in hot seats. You all get in from the public all the time.
Absolutely.
No one appreciates what you all have to go through until they sat in that seat.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, each one of you has to come to an understanding about how you handle the public when they come to you and continually complain about something when you send it to the city manager and they're not getting that person's not getting what they want. I know, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's very tough.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens with personnel. So would council like us to think about putting something in the personnel policy that specifically deals with directors? Or just leave that as a practice for? No, see, no, Gary's not here. Just leave it, okay.
But we're gonna get more involved with the applications and.
I think that's a
Resumes.
practice Scott could definitely, he
Oh, yeah,
definitely
yeah,
can.
anything.
Yeah,
It's certainly allowable under the charter.
very good.
You have that power now.
Yeah, it's certainly allowed under the charter.
Right.
We just need to implement it sort of as a practice going
Okay.
forward. Are you satisfied? I just want to make sure we're
Yes.
addressing your issues.
Yes.
Okay? I know one thing we need to talk about. And that is, do you all want to go back into our, because we actually talked about this a year or so ago. The last article, Patrick, is where we did the private act change on our, the Shelbyville Power, Water and Sewer, system. Because they're their own system. What the city does, what the council, excuse me, the council has the power to put the people on the board. And so I think we probably, while we're sitting here talking about the charter, let's look at the qualifications and that whole thing, if you all don't.
Yeah,
mind.
let's,
To see if we need to clarify that, change that, whatever y'all want, because we wound up appointing someone a little over a year and a half, well, not quite a year and a half ago.
Right.
Based on an interpretation of what we said we were going to clarify it. We didn't do it the last time we went through. So let's talk about what you want for the power board. And if you wish to create anything else or new about the power board, it's time to have a talk about it right now.
It's Article 17, page C30 is where it starts at.
Wasn't that issue where, is this the case where the, utilities were not placed in the applicant's name?
Spouse's name.
Yep.
It's in the wife's.
I have a suggestion that that two things, one is they're a rate user, and two, I think they need to be a citizen of Shelbyville. They need to live in the city.
A resident.
A resident.
That's how we would call that.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
we
feel like,
had it
I
as,
know we've had some live in the county and they have stuff there, but I
It
think
used to be. I remember when we changed it,
we
it's
changed that because of.
Flat Creek, because
That's right.
when they purchased Flat Creek, we
Right.
thought they're gonna be ratepayers just like everybody else.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's no difference of standing for those people, so why shouldn't they be allowed? So that's the reason we changed that back then, was when they purchased
And that makes
Black
sense.
Creek.
That makes sense.
We just need to define ratepayer.
Right.
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 Down, came up with.
Yeah, does it have to be in the person's name or their spouse's? That's what we need to clarify.
We do need to clarify that. I think we need to clarify that.
If I could ask a question, are there residents in the community that are not ratepayers,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
In the city of Shelbyville that don't,
that aren't connected to water and sewer?
is there any Duck River in the city? I wouldn't think
I
so.
wouldn't think so.
Well,
There's a
there
few
are
on the
in
outer edges, aren't there?
the new parts that
New-
have been
new
added.
Outer edges,
Yeah.
just because of the way the lines run, connection and everything.
Right, but that could be potential, we got potential, that could be on water and sewer though, maybe, and only
Yeah,
on
not on
Duck
that.
River Electric.
Right.
They could be
Or
on.
vice
on-
versa, they be on Shovel Power, not
Not
the
water.
water. and
Not
stuff.
They might not be.
Right.
They could be
Right.
big cut
With
water.
apartment
Right.
right there.
Right.
So that's something we need to think about. But we had a situation where it was simply how the power systems, software billing system did. They don't allow it. As Lisa and I both are both widows, and both of our power bills are in our deceased husband's name. So I technically wouldn't qualify, though I have owned that, and been paying bills for years.
Yep.
So that was kind of our thing, is that surely you don't want to keep those people from, just because they require one thing and one name only.
That makes sense. I've just worked in communities before where there's been a lot of people with well and septic. So they technically weren't ratepayers, and they were residents of the community, and
I think
therefore.
we have a couple of wells somewhere, I don't know about the
They
septic, but they still need the,
power.
for electricity,
Yeah.
it's usually the city.
Yeah, electricity is fairly new to me. Utilities are a little different up north.
So it's on page 131, or at least mine,
Yeah.
131 or
C31.
C31, excuse me.
C31.
And that is 17, Article 17, 17-3, and it's subsection B.
Okay,
And so that talks about who are the qualifying, eligible to serve on the board.
Right.
So, and we just need, I think we just need to word it a different way because, you know, in my mind, ratepayer is somebody who has electricity or water or something through the system and is responsible for paying the bill, which would be me or Ginger in our case where our husbands have passed away. But according to the utility company, they don't look at it that way. They look at it as our deceased husbands are the ratepayers. And so that's what happened. We had, I think it's happened on a couple of occasions
occasions.
since then, where the bill might be in the wife's name and the husband's running, or it might even be in a corporation's name instead of the
Their business
individual's name. Right.
That's the other thing, getting back to resident. You
Right.
have people that don't live in the city, but own a business in the city or own property in the city and have a legitimate business address here in the city, and they pay a bill. Or it may be their company that pays the bill.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff we've gotten into.
Yeah.
So we need to flesh that.
So,
So ratepayer, we could say spouse or heir in that language there. I don't know how you do that as far as a business. There's a lot of people that, like I said, that own businesses that don't live in the city that have been paying those bills for years.
Maybe you could put
Yeah.
receive services from Shovel Power. I mean, that's kind of a blanket, but
so what did we do? We changed our verbiage, our language, on this particular appointment. We changed verbiage.
We did that in an interpretation, and we did I think a resolution that said, we believe that our definition of ratepayer, how we would interpret our charter would be, that would be a person or a spouse, or the individual responsible for paying the bill, even if it's in a business's name.
Yep.
That's how we interpreted it, and at the time, we said, we'll go into our charter and make that clearer. But that was the council's vote in interpreting what you all meant at the time we did it.
That resolution would be a good starting point.
Yeah, we had a resolution, I think we did that.
I don't think we did. I'll look back and find it.
yeah, I could get a copy of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see.
Yeah.
Power board's attorney still has exception to that.
That's exactly right. That's what we're dealing with. The fire board's attorney doesn't.
Right, but why would we receive them anyway? Why would we change that?
It's our turn.
You all decide on who gets on the
We
board.
elect.
Right, you all get on, he was taking a very narrow interpretation of the thing. He was.
So the body of the whole, the council, appoints the board.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's correct.
Every May, they appoint either one or two members on a rolling basis to the power board.
Okay.
And after that, it's pretty much, well, they run themselves.
Right.
We only have limited, we do have to sign off on some bonds, but other than that, it's pretty limited. They do come in as part of our audit, I believe that's correct. Okay, we have to include their audit with our audit,
Right.
power system.
Yes.
There's just some limited things like that. So really, the council's ability to have input on our city's utility system is through the appointment of individuals. And then we do have our city manager, and we have one member of council that automatically sits on the power board. So that's where, how we can have some influence.
Because you've got, here, we've got plenty of county residents who are landlords in the
Yes.
city. And some choose to have their tenants pay their electricity and some keep it in their name.
Right.
Ongoing.
Which makes them a user then.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
And that,
It's a big issue trying to find out who it is. And in one way, I'd rather almost make them residents of the city because it cleans that up real quick. You residentially residing here. But I feel that doesn't completely capture with the folks in Flat Creek. So I don't know if we could just say, you're a resident of the city of Shelbyville and a ratepayer, or you're a ratepayer within the system through
And I
Black Creek, but What if, I'm waiting for him to buy somebody else?
Yeah, my thoughts are that we just need to have an agreement between Shelbyville Power, Water and Sewer and the city on what qualifies that person for the board, to keep the attorney for that group
Yes.
from saying that's not a legal signature when they sign. I think we just need to get the two attorneys or two, Power, Water and Sewer and the city of Shelbyville together and say, this is what we consider. Do y'all agree?
I do, I agree with that, and.
That way we don't have this confusion.
And we went through two attorneys to get signed, and then we went to our recorder. I mean, what was?
To swear him in.
And it's difficult to have one saying,
He's still revolved around.
Swear it in or whatever.
Their attorney refused to swear him in because he didn't
what,
believe the language was clear enough in the
Right.
charter.
Mhm.
So they refused, and then we did the resolution where we put what we interpreted the charter to say, and I swore him in.
It all still revolved around that definition of ratepayer.
Right.
right,
Exactly.
exactly right.
Exactly.
The power system has had ratepayer in their definition as somebody, their deceased husband.
His name is on.
That's a
They
different
didn't
thing.
care anything else, that is a ratepayer. We did not, when we changed our language, we didn't have that in mind of a.
No,
No.
We literally meant the household, basically.
Right.
Somebody in that household had to be
Like a
paying
check.
the bill. So we clarified it in our resolution, but their attorney didn't feel like he was, getting paid by them, I guess. They wanted to strict their definition of ratepayers. So that's why I say it's ratepayer definition.
right, and my definition on this is, this does not clarify what our definition of a ratepayer would be what the system used. And I felt like you all had enough, there was enough here that probably the court would come down on in your favor. How you want to define what a ratepayer is.
Yeah, this is a question for you as the
Mhm.
attorney. Could there be an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the board stating what the definition of a ratepayer?
I suppose we could do that, yes. It's just their attorney took a very, very conservative approach.
Yeah, if it was
To
in black
define
and
it.
white, it might be a little cleaner.
Yeah, that's what we agreed to do. They agreed, council agreed. We just wanted to clarify that, so you know that our charter says this is what we mean by ratepayer.
I just
Only
like to have
appointed
that-
person. Right, and I think Ralph would approve it if you actually defined what was in here. You'd be fine with it.
If we can get that settled, I think that'll take a lot of questions off the board.
So we
Right.
just never decide what we want.
But Ralph is never gonna be satisfied unless it's the way it was before we changed those things.
I think Ginger just needs to get with Ralph and.
Yeah,
what
I think so too.
Seems to
See if they
be
can work it out.
agree to.
I think it should be their verbiage, and if that's what they defined it as, that's what they defined it as, and leave it at that. That's micromanaging right there. We're trying to change the verbiage to get a person in on the board, that's what it's gonna look like.
Well, it's up to y'all completely how
I
you
would say it
want
should
it.
go right back to
You
where
can
they
make
had.
it a ratepayer.
That's their thing, I don't do the power board, I'm not on it, and I think that's a very good group of people, an excellent chairman, an excellent attorney, and they know their thing. And what they write and their thing is their thing.
I disagree because I think widows and widowers ought to have a shot at it. They're paying the bill, even though the deceased person is technically, in the power system's definition, a ratepayer, even though they don't even exist anymore legally.
We should go right back to where they had it and leave it alone, and if the person doesn't qualify under that, then they just sign.
See if we can't get that language cleared up between Shelbyville Power, Water and Sewer and our city and get the same definition so that we won't have any kind of confusion on that again.
Well, I believe, I don't need to be speaking out of turn, hope I'm not, but I believe that Mr. McBride accepted our, interpretation of what we were talking about, because he did not have a problem with this appointment. This last year, there was no problem. He swore in whoever it was we appointed, and I know out of the accident we had, there were several that had that same issue.
Yeah, and some of them pulled out, as I remember.
Some of.
I think we reappointed the two that was there, but there was one or two that found out
That may
that they
be-
probably didn't qualify.
That may be how come,
Yeah,
he didn't have any problem swearing them in because they were reappointed.
but does everybody see a big question mark there that we just need to get cleared up? So we've been dealing with that for a year and a half or so since I've been in office.
So what do you all prefer? What's the will of the council on defining ratepayer?
What they said.
Everyone else,
I like what we said.
what do you three think?
I think whoever pays the bills and rate payer.
Whoever pays the bill
Well, that could be the husband,
or the spouse?
if the wife doesn't even work, but she
Well, I'm-
was off and went up there and got it in her name, cause that happens a lot.
Yeah,
So then the husband's the one making all the money paying the bill, but he can't run because it's in her name. I think it should include spouse.
I think, well, maybe it should be the household.
We talked,
That's when I went back to thinking, if you live in the city limits, it takes a whole lot.
Yeah, that clears it up, that clears
And you
it
know,
up.
really, and I have actually asked our mayor to, on some of our any of our appointments
yeah.
in the future, to look to people that live in the city limits, not necessarily in the county.
we can fully change it back to residents, and if you want to, try to address the Flat Creek
But
situation.
you'd have to address
Right.
them, and also include Flat Creek.
As well as those who are on the form for Flat Creek.
When they do their, there's a financials, when they do it, you get Shelby Power Water, and then you get Flat Creek financials and stuff. So it's two different animals.
Yeah.
As far as that part of it goes.
Yeah.
Financials.
Could you say something like a Flat Creek resident address?
Yeah.
As part of your resident definition?
Yeah.
Yep.
Household.
I mean, because really, if you live in Bell Buckle, you don't really need to be on the power board.
No.
And you don't really need to be on the planning commission. I mean, you need to, because this is Shelbyville that's being changed, it's not Ward Trace being changed or Shelbyville. You ought to have some meat in the game if you're gonna.
We used to be a regional. That was before the county got zoning, we were regional, so we had more people like that, because
Right.
it did for the region.
So they'd have a city of Shelby address or Flat Creek.
And then some of the people in
Well,
Black Creek, I don't want to confuse the issue, but some of them are served out of Delaware. I don't know if they.
Well, it should have to be a rate
They
payer.
have to be right.
Rate payer
It's
resident
still a rate, but-
with a Flat Creek address.
I just think that the Shelby Power, Water and Sewer again and city just need to decide what the language is that they both can agree on, and that should be what's in our charter. That's my feeling. I don't know how, is that?
I think we addressed that with making also, their ratepayers they reside in the city of Shelbyville on their ratepayers on their residential.
I mean, y'all feel that way that it'd be better if they were residents of Shelbyville?
And not somebody that just has the power bill in their name and they
Yeah,
have it too.
right.
Right.
But,
Cause you got people that don't even live in Shelby, Bedford County,
Right.
who's got rental properties.
That's right.
oh, yeah.
And they have the power bill in their name.
That's right,
Yeah,
get our bill in
that's right.
the name, cause they don't get people.
They are not residents.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got to put out a word of caution right here though. Because depending on the change, it could impact some of the current members,
I know, that's right.
Yeah.
including our chair.
That's right.
And so,
She may own that town, but I don't know what, I mean.
But she don't live in the city, so.
so
You would have to, you would probably want to define it that this would not, those that are currently on the board could remain,
Until reelection.
but would not be up for,
but then you have to
Reappointment.
change the other sentence that says, if any member of the board shall cease to possess any of the qualifications,
Uh-huh.
a vacancy should be immediate.
right, you have to,
We can change it
That's why I
immediately to the end of their term.
you would have to say that on the, yes.
Y'all can tell that.
No, that's not.
It just needs to be cleared up. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
What, like the mayor said, let them figure it out among themselves, then come back to this council with
Yeah.
what they come up with.
And I see Lisa and I see Ginger's situation with spouse deceased and those kind of things. With Duck River, we ran into the same thing. And grandpa had the power and grandpa's been gone for 2 generations, those kind of things. So, yeah, we just need to get the wording so that it's, agreeable to both. Yeah, we don't have the confusion when we have those, nominations and appointments.
But what I hear from most of you is that you actually would like to return to being a resident of the city. You're no, he was yes, you were yes, you were yes, you were yes. So,
I think you should.
and we would address Flat Creek.
Yeah. Or Black Creek.
Okay, we'll try to work it out. We'll obviously come back with you.
Yeah,
We'll
but
all
I'm just
have
saying, yeah.
the language for you all to look at.
So,
So
Your resident and ratepayer, you want included in
I think we've got to have back to the
both.
resident of the city, we need to address the Flat Creek. And then in terms of ratepayer itself, if we're gonna make them be a ratepayer at a residential address, not allowing just business, we need to define that, of course, a spouse,
is included.
it would be, is the ratepayer whose name is in, the account is in their name or their spouse.
That's right.
Of course, those, Flat Creek people only get the water services. That's all they get.
Right.
Right.
Is there power at Duck River?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes. Is there anything else about the power system while we're talking about it that you all think we need to address?
I think that's the only thing that I.
Somebody asked about removal of members from me one time, and I just want y'all to look at that at 132.
C-32 on your,
Yeah, excuse me, C-32, page C-32, 17-6 talks about the removal of members. So section A, there's that tough ouster law, and I've been asked 1,000,000 times as a municipal attorney from a county standpoint, from a town standpoint, from a city standpoint, ouster law is very serious. You have got to have done a pretty big crime to be ousted in the state. It's not really for just don't come to meetings or whatever type stuff. So that's one, an ouster. And number two, the board itself can remove members. They didn't appoint them, but they can move them. So I just thought I'd point that all out to you all, that you do not have, the council does not have the power to remove anyone from the board. Because I've been asked about that before. That's what it says right there.
yeah,
The board may also, by an affirmative vote of 4 of its members, remove any citizen member for misconduct, malfeasance, or for any other just and sufficient cause as authorized by state law after due trial before the board following 10 days' notice in writing of specific charges against the member. I just wanted to bring that to your attention while you're looking at your joker. Make you aware of that. And I hadn't even thought.
So, let me not confuse the issue, but let's just say we put that resident in there. And then this person moves outside of the city. Is that gonna be an option for the board to remove them from the?
Well, no, technically, let's put this way. Technically, the way your charter is written, if someone ceases to be qualified, if they themselves voluntarily move out, they would be. What I was thinking about writing in the charter adoption, if you go back to resident, is just very limited circumstance. Those members currently on the board at the time of this change
Yes.
can stay till the end of their term. That's what you would write. But overall, if anybody, and they know they have to be a resident, and they are put on as a resident, and then they move out, that person would cease to be a member of the board. If that's the way you want it, or you can just take it
I
out,
think that's good.
or you can let people just stay on till their term is over, and then just not reappoint them. That's it. It's your charter, you can change it how you want.
Yeah, it'd be difficult if somebody moved out of state.
Very
for them to
difficult,
stay in it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it'd be probably cleaner just to put in there that if they moved out of the corporate limits, they couldn't be a member.
Well, it says it there, if you cease to meet the qualifications.
Yeah.
So you're no longer on the board, yeah. But if they choose to bring the resident requirement back, they have non-residents on the board right now. And so I think they would want to give them your grandfather to the end of your term. Anything else about the power system you all want to look at?
Hey, just for clarification, and it may be in there, it was in there before, is there like a requirement for how long you have to be a resident?
Oh, it used to be 2 years.
right.
They had to be a resident in 2 years. That was the form requirement that we took out when Fight Creek came on. I don't know if you
Well,
want
it's
that or
still,
not.
it's still in there.
So it would be.
Oh, it's
They pay her for
Right,
2
pay for
years,
2
yeah.
years.
It's still,
A resident for 2
Yeah,
years as
yeah.
well.
it's still in there. So to end up the last question we were talking about, the council appoints this member, but the council cannot remove that member.
That's correct.
The board has to remove that member. I want us to all be clear on that. That's the way it's set up.
And I don't know if there's something, Scott, you guys that sit on the power board, I don't know if y'all had any conversations with the board or with Jason about anything that they think needs to be changed.
We can tonight, we have.
And-
Why don't you just ask them in case there's why it's open, if they think, because some of this stuff is operational type things.
Yeah.
Hours, meetings and all that kind of stuff.
This is gonna affect 2 members of the board.
What is?
The fact they have to be resident of Sheffield, in city limits, that limits city limits of Sheffield.
So that's definitely going in there?
We will be drafting that language
Yeah.
to ask, based on there's 4 here that say yes to your 1 no. Of course, y'all got to vote on it
Yes.
at its final.
Right.
But we'll draft that language.
And you'd
You'll-
also state in there that existing board members are grandfathered.
Right.
Right.
For that change and,
Yeah,
Make sure.
so
all
the
three.
existing board members wouldn't be in effect. which would
Right,
be
they would
future
still-
board.
they would stay
Until the end of their
End of
term.
their-
until the end of their term.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to run again
Right.
if they moved.
Unless they move.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing else. If y'all would though, just ask. It's an opportunity. If they need something changed in terms of meetings, system operation, da. If they need anything, this would now be a time to ask. I don't think they probably have any, but it'd be good to run it by them. Scott, Bennett said something. Was it just the code? Bennett asked me to look at a particular provision we talked about for the cemetery, but that was in the code, not the charter. That's what I thought. It's not a charter issue for you to look at. Okay.
Are there any other charter issues that you want us to look at?
Yes. We adjusted our pay in 2020, I think. The new members that came in, I believe that was an election year. They were they came in at what we agreed on. But it was 2 years later before the three of us
Right. Could get that,
could get that.
that's right.
That seems very awkward and it needs to, it's just
That,
very awkward.
that's state
That's
statute.
state law.
Yeah.
We can't change that. You yourself, no one can vote in the state to increase their own pay while you're there. Yep.
You need to be
You
reelected.
have to be reelected to get it.
Right.
If you're the county, Maryland, you tuck it all in a bunch of those things and approve them all. And
Oh, yeah, yeah.
tuck it in the committees,
Uh-huh, yeah.
all vote on a bunch of stuff, and automatically vote for yourself. First thing.
Only our Congress can give themselves raises.
Yeah, not be subject to the sunshine.
Yeah, that.
Now,
The changes in the hotel.
Pat Marsh had gone to Yorksville and came back with some answers. I had sent him to the conference to ask about, and it boils down to ethics. And I think when we first started today, it was more on, employees from the county or the city and that type of thing. Pat has said it's ethics because I'm running around here and trying to promote the city. But I'm seated as a council. And you can't double dip. But Pat had asked a couple of people at the conference, and it boils down to ethics. How that works. How does that work?
I'm not familiar with the scenario you're thrown out in front of me. So you're saying if a council member worked for the city?
I guess that's. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the promotion that, we're trying to promote. We don't have per se the photographers that do our alleys and this and that and such. And I didn't do it anyway, but, where is it in this ethics thing to where
well, right now it's
I
black
would
and,
officially do it?
right now it's black and white, that an employee can't be a paid member, or a council member can't be a paid member of the staff. So it's not ethical, it's black and white.
Our charter says that.
Yeah,
Do I?
Our charter says that about the city employees.
right.
You can't be a city employee, it'll be a
Or
council,
home employee.
or a contracted employee. I don't know.
That was over,
I'm looking
that's
at
what I
what it
understand
says.
it was. It was over under Article 3, qualifications for mayor and qualifications for city council. It says, Article 3, 4B, or an employee of the city of Shelbyville. It's on page 18.
Yeah, yeah.
An employee could be a contracted employee, so it's not defined specifically to a full-time employee.
Right.
So it could be anything, a
It
contracted,
just says an
part-time.
employee of the city of Shelbyville.
Right. Yeah, so that would restrict a council member from
Being
receiving
paid.
pay.
Right.
I got a question. What we talked about a while ago about the county employees, I'm fine with that. We've got a person that's running for a council seat that's a county employee. All right, he gets elected. Would he, this be a one-term unless he quits or retires or whatever? Would be, wouldn't it? Because you didn't, well,
That's right.
Assume-
We got somebody.
Assume this goes through, and that would be probably coming up to July 1st, 2025.
his term.
I'm not even sure if he's allowed to stay. We'd at first have to, I don't think he'd be allowed to stay.
Not the way your current charter.
So he might, we just talked, if he was elected, he may only get to serve for 1 year.
Maybe.
Okay, that's what I knew, I've been asking about that.
That would have to, that's something also to please talk to Melissa about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got one running now.
a
The
current
county,
Yeah.
county.
County.
employee.
A county employee.
County.
Something about that.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Yeah. Don't hurt nobody's feelings.
Well, I'm just looking for ineligibility. I thought there was somewhere, it's been a while since I've looked, but if you know, if you move out, if you're a council member, if you move out of the city, you're no longer a council member.
Yeah.
Well, it says under Article 3(4)(a), that shall be eligible for election to the office and shall represent the ward in which he resides. Each councilman must reside full-time in the ward from which they're elected. So I would assume that means
That
if you
takes
move
that
out, then you can't represent that ward anymore.
Cause, I never, sure.
Well, I feel
know,
it may
I've
depend on how it's written.
Yeah.
Whether they could stay for the 4 years or they.
Have to step down.
And there are elected officials not far from here that have moved and outside of the city and are claiming that they still should have their seat.
Yeah.
And that's something that would needed to be assigned, or that the Attorney General would make a
I
decision.
think I read about that
Did you need
particular
to deal
one.
with this one, tell
I'm not saying
I
it,
think I read about that.
This one's,
particular
I
one.
think,
them?
real clear.
Boy, she got a
They
walk.
were redoing a house outside the city and they were living in.
Yeah,
something like that.
Our
I think,
charter's clear, each council must reside full-time in the ward.
Yeah.
So they couldn't move out and say, I'm gonna live right here outside in the county and come back. So we may have to have, there might be court action on that.
Yeah.
But how we draft this about the city, because that's really a good question. Wonder if somebody is sitting on the council
Right,
and decides to go get a job in the county.
right. That's right.
I can't, can't get a job in the city.
It was no longer be a council.
Okay.
I have a question while we're throwing all this out, because I've never seen happen, because it's never, let's say if I moved out of the city limits,
Right.
how do you replace, who has the choice, how's this seat replaced?
right.
Is it by nomination? You just.
Appointed.
We already, we've done that.
Yeah, we've done that.
Majority have to appoint
Appointment.
somebody.
Whatever kicks the bucket, this council replaces him.
And it depends, I think, where, in your term. I think it actually also depends on where that happens in your term.
Yeah,
Like
we
if
didn't
it's more than
replace
two-
We talked about him saying kick the bucket.
Don't tell me they have her kick the bucket.
We didn't replace Mark Clanton because he retired within 6 months of the election.
Right.
Or he removed from the board within 6 months of the election, so we didn't replace him. Y'all didn't vote to do that.
Yeah,
We
that's
just
what
ran
was
with
Thomas
5
was
councils.
talking about. Mark.
Yeah, because his seat was up for reelection.
It was up for reelection anyway, and he just
Y'all
left
just
6
left it
months
open.
early, so we,
Just let the spot open.
But if somebody moves out with 3 years left in their term, I'm not certain, but you may be able to appoint someone to fill that for a year. And then in the next general election, there would be, somebody would fill that for the remainder
For
2
the
years of
remainder
the
of
term,
that term, yeah. Okay.
is what I think,
That makes.
Practice in the past has been the next city general election.
which
So
is every 2 years.
in theory, they could,
Right.
if they were to quit now, and we replaced them, it'd be 2 years from now, before they had a city.
Yeah, that'd be the next one.
right.
I had that, I noticed that, how that happened.
City general election, not a federal.
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
Because when I ran for mayor in the middle of my term,
Yeah.
and so technically that seat came open when I was sworn in as mayor for 2 years. They appointed Monty Thomas
Okay,
for the 2 whole years,
yeah.
and then he ran at that 2-year point.
Yeah, well, that
He didn't
makes
have to
sense.
run the next general election, which would have been next year when the county. election.
We only have an election every 2 years now. City,
City does, yes.
just every 2
Yeah,
years.
But you said like hold it for 1 year.
What I meant is, if William was in his 4-year term and he moved out with he served 1 year. There'd be 1 year remaining
Oh,
till the
yeah.
next election. You could appoint somebody for a year,
For the next
and then in the next city election.
city general.
You like-
I can't afford it.
I can't either. And I'm not gonna run for the power board either.
I ain't gonna run for the power board.
Y'all ready to discuss something else?
I think
Yeah.
we're good on
While
that.
you're on this residency requirement.
Yes, sir.
I brought it up before,
Okay.
and I bring it up again, because under voter qualifications, we still allow property rights voters
Yes, you do.
to vote in the city simply because they own property.
You do.
It's kind of one of those, to me, it flies back at the old Jim Crow laws. You cannot really have people who reside outside the city limits influencing our elections to the point, and a lot of these people are friends of mine, and I've told them to their face, you know, to me, it's not technically
Mhm.
legal if somebody really challenged it. If you and your wife own a piece of property inside the city limits of Shelby, and both of y'all get a chance to vote. And I know specifically, in some cases, we have people who own multiple pieces of property. And they may own property in Williamsburg in his race.
Right.
So this year, I'm gonna register to vote as a property rights owner in his race. Then 2 years later, they own property in my ward, and they decide, well, I'm gonna reside, I'm gonna register as a property rights owner in his ward. Therefore, they're getting two chances to vote
I see what you're
for
saying.
council, two different council members
Yeah,
every 4
Yeah,
years.
that shouldn't happen.
And that
Not right.
No,
happens.
that's not right.
And, you know, so you've got people
And
that
they
have.
only have to
multiple-
do it 6 months prior.
Really, do you want the delusion of the local vote is what it happens. Generally, the minorities are living in the city and those kind of things. So I think a case could be actually put that you cannot, you just don't allow people who don't reside inside your city limits to vote. Period.
No, if I
So
don't
it's-
think, yeah, I see what you're saying.
I agree.
I agree. And they, yeah, I
You wanna
agree.
change that?
Well, if you're not gonna change it, like you said,
If you're
if,
doing it for
if
the.
they go
power
vote
company,
like that's,
It's your residency, not your property owner.
Bingo.
yeah, I agree.
I can own property in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah,
I
I
do
know.
own property in Nashville, Tennessee. You go down there, if they allowed it to be I could go down there and elect their mayor, elect the mayor here, and bounce back and forth
You're talking, they can vote every 2 years.
every 2 years.
For a
They
council
get-
member. We're getting to vote more than one
Every
council
2
member.
years, they get two different councils.
Yeah, that ain't right.
And that,
Hey,
that happens, I know it does, because one of them you've already mentioned her name.
Yeah, and you're gonna have individuals that don't have a primary address here. They may reside here, but
Yeah.
that isn't their primary address.
And they still live out.
They come here for the winters, or
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be where they live as a primary residence.
Right.
So that to me has always been a pet peeve. Every time we brought this up in the
You
charter
brought it up.
change,
every
I
time.
have said, we need to remove that
Yeah.
section under 2.3 voter qualifications. Just, if we ever get down to an election and somebody wins by a couple of votes, it might get nasty. That's, it gets into a lawsuit, so.
I'll get that opinion.
What page are you on?
C9,
Z9,
Thank you, Mary.
sorry, that's all right.
It's section 2.3 voter qualifications.
Yeah.
Right.
when I ran 2 years, I had a lady that I know, she was a blue Dutchess, Bobby. I got property, I was for you, I said, just go do it, baby.
That's why I say, a lot of them are friends.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How they gonna vote?
Yes, sir.
It's not, to me,
It's
it's
not right.
not fair to the citizens of Shelbyville.
No, but they just dance around every 2 years. I didn't vote every
That's right.
time something happened.
So they voted for you last 2 years,
Yeah,
this
they
year,
go-
they're gonna, they're registered up on a different piece of property and somebody else.
Or you can stop them from bouncing around. You can say, look, you can register over here.
Yeah.
You cannot change
now.
that until 4 years down the line.
Right, yeah, because this lady lived in the south part of the county, so if that's what she wants to vote in the state. Farther down, don't let her vote somewhere different every 2 years.
But then-
Don't let them change their
Yeah.
voting.
If you want to vote along to reside in the city to be on the power board, you know, it's sort of bringing that back to the
Yep.
citizens of Shelbyville.
Yep.
When it gets in a conflict of interest, if they live out in the county somewhere.
I didn't know that, cause when I was running, my wife saw this lady at the store, she come in and said, well, so-and-so's gonna vote. I said, she don't live in the city. She said, she owns property in your ward. I said, "Oh, really?" And I know she did.
But me, here's another side of it. Me, who owns property in a different ward in the city of Shelbyville, I cannot go and do a property rights voter over in, say, your ward if I own property. I own.
That's correct.
That's right, exactly.
But I can't do that. But somebody else, if I lived outside the city, I sure
That's
could.
right, you can, you're right.
Uh-huh.
That might be,
It won't
once
let
they
me, 'cause I
really
asked.
allow it,
I went to the election commission and tried that.
if we allow it, if they register to vote in the 5th ward or the 1st ward, the first, whatever, that's it, that's the only place they
We didn't
vote.
clean that
I
up.
don't care if they don't have show.
Ready.
That's good. All right.
Cool. Look at that way.
You have brought that
This
up.
is like the third or fourth time we brought the charter change.
Put progress in it,
It's
progress,
on
man.
deaf ears, think about it.
Somebody joined your side.
Anything else?
Well, okay, where does it say that, the council, it has, mandatory so many meetings to attend? There should not be so many meetings that you can miss.
I don't think the charter
That's the
addresses
case.
that.
If you want to,
Not even.
I don't think it mentions that.
should it not?
I don't know if that's in charters.
I don't
Have you
believe
seen
it
that?
is.
I have not seen it.
I've asked it
I haven't seen it.
I believe it's,
For elected officials. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
I've
if
asked
any
it.
man
I
that
think the county does. I think they.
Yeah, I believe the county does.
On that Thursday.
you could do that for board members, I believe.
board members,
but not
yeah,
elect-
but I haven't
not
seen
elected
elected
members.
officials.
People,
Is it in the, where is that for
Yeah.
county members?
One elected official in the county that didn't show up in the office for a whole year.
Yeah, that is.
Where is that for, you said for a county commissioner?
They used to not pay them if they did
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, they didn't get.
20 years ago,
They
like I had to know if they were there or not,
Yeah.
and they lost
Yeah.
their 100, or if they missed a board meeting, didn't get their 100, if they
Oh,
missed a
they paid
committee,
them by
they didn't get
Oh,
their 50.
okay.
They paid them by.
They were paid if they win, is the way it was. I don't know, that was 20 years ago. I don't know what they do.
I think they still do that.
I don't know what they do.
Paid them by.
That's why they have a lot of tenants.
I've been in situations before where a council or a mayor will kick a board member off for not attending meetings, but you can't do that to elected officials.
You certainly can't take them off for not attending.
That'd be up to the electorate.
The electorate, yeah,
Not
see,
vote 'em
pretty,
in.
it's, the electorate's pretty sacred, if they vote somebody in,
Yeah.
they vote you in.
I have no idea what they do now.
But we,
I don't know.
the cities,
I've been out of the loop.
so they had that policy that they just would pay, if you didn't attend the meeting, you didn't get paid.
Right.
Whatever the,
And it was only
Per diem would be-
150 a month then, 100 for the regular meeting, 50 for the committee meeting.
right,
I don't even know what they make now. But,
that, I
I had to
assume
find out
that's
if you
probably
win or not.
legal to do,
Yeah, pay has nothing to do with sitting in office.
right?
Well, we don't pay my meetings, so.
No,
No.
I was just pointing that out, if the council, that something they wish to look at further. Like I'll get a big salary anyway.
I told you. I've already asked her and him and 2 or 3 different. I said, if I'm on the storm, don't pay me, I'm good. Don't, no, we can't not do that. I said, all right.
Yeah, I tried that too.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, but if I'm out storming, oh yeah, I'm good.
Donate a lot.
Yeah, donate it to something. Put it in a
Okay.
pot. Drop it down.
So good. Anybody else got anything?
I'm good.
Oh, one other thing then.
Yeah.
Back on page C10, ineligibility for office. This reads very confusing to me about, if you're convicted of a offering a bribe or larceny or any offenses declared infamous by law, I'm not sure what that might be. Less restored to citizenship, just is all vague, and then it goes on, if you have a judgment of unpaid for any monies received by them, what does that mean?
In any
Received
official
by them, like-
capacity.
If somebody pays me and I have a judgment of unpaying them, that doesn't make sense to me.
It's very old language.
And then in any official capacity due to the United States, the state, or any political subdivision, those who are defaulters to the treasury at the time of the election, it all kinds of runs together.
Yeah.
Well, that
It's
came
saying
up in
that
this
you
last
got-
election from one of the guys, he had not paid his delinquent taxes or something, and he was running for another position. I saw that on the state level somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had to sign that, I had to sign something similar when I signed the election petition a few weeks ago. And it read cleaner than this did. It said something about any state of Tennessee, federal government, state of Tennessee, or any political subdivision. But this is, and I said, where is that in our charter? And they said, oh, it's in there. So I went back and read it. But does that mean anybody with judgments against them or, any kind of felony, or what does that mean? That whether you can,
A judgment unpaid.
a judgment unpaid to who? Those,
Doesn't say.
Convicted of offering a bribe.
In any official capacity.
I don't want to keep somebody from running. I mean, I could have a judgment against me for paying a bill
Sure.
because I'm disputing the darn thing, something
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there ought to be some vehicle for that to be.
I could get a recommendation to clarify the.
Yeah, I think it needs to be clarified.
And there's gotta be a template out there that they probably cleaned it up other places.
Yeah, it all runs together to where I can't tell you if it just means the state of Tennessee or.
It'd be hard to
Bill,
find.
thank you, Michael, soldiers.
Generally, it's trying to restrict people that have been convicted of a felony or owe money to the entity.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But to me, they explain it.
It's, yeah.
That
Good
was
point.
my last questions.
Good.
Motion adjourned.
Anything else?
Just to clarify, I'll go back with these notes to our legal team, sit down with them, and we'll come back with recommended language that would be up to present to the state.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick.
Well, thank you all very much. It was a pleasure meeting all of you.
Yeah, good to meet you, sir. Thank
It's
you.
way easy to remember your name. It's way
Yeah,
hard.
there's two of them. I'm Patrick, he's Pat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He did call me, though, he said I must be.
There were no announcements.
I'd like to like
Any announcements to make before adjournment?
Next week, you know.
Bye.